Top 5 shocking facts about ancient China. 1. They bandaged girls' feet, disfiguring their feet. This custom was very widespread in China from the beginning of the 10th century to the beginning of the 20th century, especially in noble aristocratic families. It all started at an early age, when girls' feet were not yet fully formed. The first bandages often began in the fall or winter, so that the cold would reduce sensitivity to pain and reduce the risk of infection. In the process of forming lotus feet, which stretched over several years, girls repeatedly had to break the bones of their feet and toes. Naturally, such procedures often resulted in infections and necrosis. However, necrosis was often provoked on purpose, so that the toes would simply fall off, which was considered a good sign. In general, this custom is related to the fact that the prestige of the bride depended directly on the size of the foot. Since girls with lotus feet could no longer walk properly after all these procedures, they were often carried by servants. Thus, a girl's inability to walk on her own was an indication of her family's wealth and prosperity. Normal, undeformed feet were associated with peasant labor and low birth. 2. Hygiene. In Chinese aristocrats and noblemen, unpleasant body odor was considered a sign of barbarism and belonging to the lower strata of society. In order to conceal or disguise the unpleasant smell, they went to some tricks. Women, for example, tied bags of incense around their waists, and men were obliged to suck cloves in the presence of the emperor, so as not to embarrass royalty by the unpleasant smell coming from their mouths. The common peasants, especially in northern China, washed very seldom. In winter, they preferred to stay away from water for fear that contact with water during the cold season would make them susceptible to disease. The Taoists, for example, believed that it was bathing that spread disease and therefore did not wash at all. 3. Eating lice. Another oddity that follows directly from the previous one. If the majority of a country's population is alien to the concept of sanitation and hygiene, it is not surprising that the whole country would be literally crawling with lice and parasites. Lice in ancient China were so widespread that doctors in those days even used them to diagnose their patients. For example, if lice crawled evenly all over the patient's body, it was a good sign and could be said that the patient was likely to survive. If, however, the lice crawled all over the body and fled from it like rats off a ship, such a person was, in their opinion, close to death. There were so many lice that many people simply fished them out of their heads and ate them. The ancient Chinese even had a special medicine for those who ate too many lice and got poisoning. 4. Self-castration. For a poor man, a man of no noble birth, to get a job at the emperor's palace was an unprecedented fortune and a real lucky ticket that gave a chance to get out of poverty. There was just one problem: only eunuchs could work as servants of the emperor. It went so far that many parents castrated their children at an early age to increase their offspring's chances of getting the job. However, if parents did not take care of it, men had to castrate themselves. Self-castration reached its peak during the Ming dynasty. At one point there were more than 100,000 eunuchs in the country. But not every one of them got a job. The competition was about 250 people per place. Therefore, many did this procedure with themselves for nothing. And instead of working in the palace, they ended up as beggars on the porch. 5. Treatment of smallpox. As you know, the first working smallpox vaccine was created by the Englishman Edward Jenner in 1803. But attempts to treat like have been made before, including in ancient China. For example, in order to develop human immunity to smallpox, they would take smallpox scabs from a sick person, grind them into powder, and after long storage, they would blow them into the noses of healthy people using silver tubes. Children often wore a sick man's shirt and even had silk threads soaked in the pustules soaked through their skin.